everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers Podcast, Episode 4. I'm your host, Zero.exe, but you can call me Zero. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Soldier by Night, aka Soldier. How's it been going with you, Soldier?
Pretty good. Honestly, I'm just a little tired. Uh, it's been a bit of a long month. I'm really happy we're getting into June. So, I guess I should probably pay my rent tomorrow.
Yeah, I know that's on my calendar too.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. The last couple days have been hectic. I have a 3-day weekend because of Memorial Day. So the first day we took the kids to the park, and then today we took them to the pool. So I'm right there with you in the exhaustion train. I'm just ready to relax and enjoy my final day at home.
It's a nice feeling. I have been traveling a little bit too, so I'm kind of just like ready to settle down and relax, enjoy. Maybe have some time playing some games. I know the Switch is portable, but whenever I go traveling, it's like I don't know. It's hard for me to really get into it.
Okay, so I guess it's safe to say you haven't been playing much of anything on your world tour.
No, I really haven't. I think the most I played was maybe like a little bit of Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 on the Switch while I was out and about, but nothing really heavy. But I have recently began playing through Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix. I never really got a chance to in the past, and it's been kind of bothering me in the back of my head. I'm like, man, it's 60 frames. It's the Final Mix version. You haven't done it. So here I am. And it's funny, I went into a file. I think I had this exact conversation with myself maybe a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago. I don't remember when, but I was already past one of, I think it was Tarzan's World. So I don't know. The reason why I love the first game so much is because you can kind of choose where you go in some way, right? Like you can kind of not just choose any world, but you can kind of skip around and just play it differently almost each time you play the game. So that's pretty fun.
I think if memory serves, like when you get introduced to like a next stage of worlds, it gives you like 2 or 3 of them at a time, and you can kind of choose which one you want to go to first, right?
Yeah, you can do that. So if you don't like any of those, kind of like you said, there's even another layer to that where you have like maybe 1 or 2 warps. So if you instead of choosing to fly to a world, you can choose to actually interact from the gummy ship in on your travel to that world to a warp, and that warp could lead you to another world somewhere else. So like there's like a yellow warp, that one leads you to Agrabah, I believe, and there's like a blue one, and that one leads you to uh, Atlantis.
Man, I need to get into it because Kingdom Hearts 1 is a game that I never actually beat, even on the PS2. I was all over Kingdom Hearts 2, but 1 isn't one that I've actually had the chance to beat. And I have the full collection on PS4, so I should probably get into that as well. But I've been digging into my backlog as well. I finally beat Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I was kind of slow on the uptake with that one just because I did so much on the Wii version of that game, put in like 130 hours, and I also played quite a bit of it when it came out on the 3DS. So I had already gotten my fill of Xenoblade 1 by the time Definitive Edition came out, and there was plenty of other stuff to play, but I did finally beat that, as well as the extra story, Future Connected. I love what they did with Future Connected. I think that, in my opinion, was a better extra story than Torna the Golden Country from Xenoblade 2, and I know that's probably a hot take just because Torna was so beloved by the fan base, but I like that Future Connected didn't overextend its welcome. It was 14 hours when I beat it, and I did all of the side quests, found all the pawn specters, and beat all of the unique monsters on the Bionis' shoulders. So I got my fill, but it wasn't as padded out as Torna was. So it was a lot of fun to go through, and now I'm ready for Xenoblade 3.
That's awesome. I really love when developers really put in, just extra story. I don't believe any of the. I mean, yeah, the final mixes are kind of like that, just kind of in comparison to like the Kingdom Hearts stuff. But that was already released in Japan. It's almost like the West just got final mixes for the first time. But I'm glad that that's brand new. It didn't even exist in the Wii version for the Xenoblade, right?
Well, the Future Connected was an extra story. It was basically kind of like an epilogue to Xenoblade 1. It takes
Okay.
place a year after you beat the final boss in Xenoblade 1, and basically sets up for Xenoblade 3. It's almost like a prologue to Xenoblade 3. And what I found really cool is that the Bionis' shoulder, which is the entire area that you're on for that little game, is actually an area that was in the data of the Wii version. Like that area was there, but it was unused. That you could never access it unless you like modded your Wii. And I actually remember doing that on my Wii just to see what the Bionis shoulder would look like, and I was just amazed that this massive area was just never used in any capacity. So it's really cool that they kind of dug into the archives for that and really fleshed it out, made it look amazing, gave side stories and all that good stuff. So it's really cool to see them do that.
Yeah, that's how it should be. When you find an area that they didn't use, and then all of a sudden, now there's life to it. I think that's anybody's dream, especially when you're growing up. Yeah, I never played the first Xenoblade Chronicles game. Unfortunately, it just kind of escaped me. I think my first Xenoblade game was Xenoblade Chronicles X, which was a good one to get into, but I think the my recommendation would be the second one. But what would you say? Would you recommend kind of going chronologically?
Well, without getting too spoilery, Xenoblade 1 and 2 have a connection to each other. One is not a direct sequel to the other. They basically both kind of happen at the same time. But if you do play Xenoblade 2, there's a lot of references to Xenoblade 1 that you may miss if you don't play 1 first. So I would recommend playing 1 first, not just for the narrative continuity, but also for the fact that the battle system is a lot simpler in 1. And once you play like X or 2, it's really hard to go back to 1's combat. It just feels so basic in comparison. So I would play 1 first, and then of course play 2, and then three's coming out, and you definitely want to play the first 2 before 3, because 3 is basically a direct sequel to both games. Like 1 and 2 happen at the same time, and 3 is basically what happens when both of those universes merge.
And that's not a spoiler.
Not exactly.
I see what you mean. So it's almost like two storylines are kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's like a convergence point. Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Xenoblade 3 later on, so I don't want to get too much into that. But there's a lot of stuff that they've been drip feeding us on social media, Nintendo, that kind of gives us a clue of what we can look forward to. It's not just a combination of story elements from 1 and 2 coming together, but they're also taking a lot of gameplay elements from 1 and 2, and basically you get the best of both worlds. So it's going to be fun.
You know what doesn't require you to play the first and the second game to really enjoy? Well, that's Splatoon 3.
You could also use the fact that Xenoblade 3 gives you the best of both worlds from 1 and 2. Well, Splatoon 3 is going to deliver that exact same thing, because we got confirmation that all basic weapons from both Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 will be available in Splatoon 3 and at launch. So that's not going to be post-launch updates, which there will be. We're going to get more content after the game releases, but at least in the box, in the cartridge on day 1, you'll be able to pick up any weapon from Splatoon 1 or Splatoon 2 in Splatoon 3. And the reason why that's kind of a big deal is because one big complaint about Splatoon 1 especially, and to an extent Splatoon 2, is a bare bones experience on day 1. I mean, Splatoon 1 didn't even have a ranked mode until like a week into the game, so all you could do was play the one player mode and Turf War and nothing else.
That's kind of rough for a start, and especially since it had nothing leading up to it outside of hype, and the hype was really good for the original Splatoon game. I remember kind of being a part of that and enjoying the first game for what it had, but I knew some people just wanted more.
There was a lot of guns from Splatoon 1 that didn't make it into Splatoon 2, and one in particular, which was my favorite gun in the game for Splatoon 1, it was called the Dual Squelcher. What they did was they kind of refashioned it into a dually weapon in Splatoon 2, where you have one in each hand. It was called the Squelcher Dualies. So the fact that we have confirmation that every gun from 1 and 2 are coming back is we're going to get both of those guns in Splatoon 3. So I'll finally be able to play the Dual Squelcher again.
Speaking of the Squelcher item, is it similar to the Jet Squelcher?
Yeah, it is actually. it's kind of like a cousin to the Jet Squelcher, where it was all red and it had a higher rate of fire
Yeah.
than the Jet Squelcher, and basically just at the cost of slight range, because the Jet Squelcher is like the longest range blaster type weapon in the game. So you still get a lot of range from the dual Squelcher, but with the second nozzle, of course, you get a little bit more fire rate. And the accuracy went down a little bit, but I mean, if you're using a higher rate of fire, that just kind of comes with the territory. But it was a really cool gun, and I loved it. And in terms of what they're going to do to balance it and make it different from the Squelcher dualies in Splatoon 2, they'll probably make it more accurate than the Squelcher dualies, because you're not going to have the two reticles from having a dualie weapon in play. And maybe they'll make it a little bit longer range than the Squelcher dualies, but still lower than the Jet Squelcher to make it have its niche carved out.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, I'm also stoked for whatever they come up with that's brand new, because this is also their opportunity to do that. Hopefully, they deliver.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Splatoon 3 hasn't gotten as much information as Xenoblade 3 has on social media, which does make sense to an extent since Xenoblade 3 is going to come out first on July 29th. They presumably switched the release dates of those games because Splatoon 3 was originally slated for summer, which July 29th is a pretty summery date, and it was delayed, quote unquote, to September 9th, which I don't know what world that would be considered a summer release. And Xenoblade 3, of course, the original trailer in the Nintendo Direct from February said it was coming out in September, and we now know it's coming out July. So they're giving priority to the game that's coming out first, and who knows if Nintendo does have a E3 timed direct like they do every year, and we kind of expect it, then we'll probably get a bigger blitz of information for Splatoon 3.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Splatoon 3 has a special edition, or if they have any. I don't think they've ever. Have they ever made something like that where they're like, oh, you get,
No.
yeah, because it'd be kind of neat if you did maybe get not something that was useful in the game, because I know they don't have like microtransactions or anything like that, so I don't know how the DLC stuff would play into it, but it would be neat if they had something kind of like a water gun or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. They've never done a special edition for any of the Splatoon games, and Splatoon is really, really popular in Japan. The first game sold, I think, 5 million total copies worldwide, which on an install base of 13 million, that's pretty good. That's like 1 in 3 Wii U owners had Splatoon, and it's even better on the Switch. They've sold, as of their last financial results, was like 13 million copies, 13.5 million. That's that's no slouch. Those are like Mario numbers right there. So
Yeah.
it's huge as a franchise. So it is now that you mention it, it is kind of weird that they've never had like a special edition for the game. You mentioned microtransactions or like little extras. One thing I wanted to point out is that the amiibos actually do really cool things for the game. They unlock special outfits that you can only get through the amiibos. So it doesn't do anything to give you an advantage. Like they don't have overpowered abilities or anything like that, but it is cool to get something like the schoolgirl outfits are exclusive. The full like robot armor was also exclusive to it, and there was a couple other sets, and they even brought back the same outfits from Splatoon 1 in Splatoon 2. So if you use the Splatoon 1 amiibos, or the Inkling amiibos that came out around Splatoon 1, you could still scan those in Splatoon 2 and get the same outfits that you would have got on the Wii U game, which I thought was really cool. So maybe we'll get a new batch of amiibos with this game, maybe some Octoling amiibos, or at least more integration, because we do have Octoling amiibos now, but I can't remember what they unlocked in Splatoon 2, but you could bet there's probably going to be something cool that'll come with them in Splatoon 3. Oh, I take that back. I believe the Octoling girl unlocked the witch outfit. So yeah, they did give him outfits for the Octolings. So I'm willing to bet we'll see that at the bare minimum.
Were those the only amiibo functions that were for aesthetics, or did you get kind of like, how you could unlock, you know, different IP stuff depending on the game? You I don't know. There's different unlockables. They didn't like add like a Samus aesthetic or anything like that.
Nothing like super cross promotional like that, but the other thing that the amiibos did is you could save a specific loadout to them. So just to like quickly equip them, you could just use the amiibo to equip that exact set of gear once you registered it. And the gear you register to it didn't have to be like the ones you got from that amiibo. So whatever your favorite fit is or something you wanted to quickly switch to, you could basically register that loadout to the amiibo and use that to switch quickly. I never really used that feature, so I don't know how quick or useful it was. But I know that was the like main intended purpose of the amiibo is to be able to save a loadout to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a go. I'm actually not too far away from getting to the Octo expansion that's available through the Nintendo Switch. So I actually just got that loaded up the other day. So that's kind of on
Nice.
standby. I'm excited to play that.
Oh yeah, and that's honestly one of Nintendo's best DLC expansions ever. It's really an awesome experience, and I'm really hoping the single player mode in Splatoon 3 kind of models itself after the Octo expansion, just in terms of the way you progress in it, the missions. You know, they were kind of short burst missions with very specific objectives. It wasn't just start here and get to the end of the level like Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 story modes were. So there were some really interesting ones, like you had to pop all the balloons while grinding on the rails, and if you made it to the end and you didn't get all the balloons, you just die. It was hard. There was a lot of difficulty in the Octo expansion, but just the missions were really really interesting. And I won't spoil it for you, but after you beat the main, the little objective based missions, there's a really cool area at the end.
Oh, that's exciting. See, this sounds kind of like how I felt. I don't know if you played it, but the Bowser's Fury extra bit that you could that was part of the Super Mario 3D World or
Yes.
Switch, I believe. That was a lot of fun. I was hoping that the next Mario game might even take away from that, you know?
Yeah, and that's I imagine they kind of used Bowser's Fury as a way to kind of experiment with it. So like if they wanted to go not quite level based like Super Mario 3D World was, but just a way to open it up a bit more but still kind of keep the gameplay design tight. I loved it. Bowser's Fury was amazing. That's another one that's Nintendo's been on a roll with these like extra stories lately. They're just the extra side content that come with the games when you think about things like the Bowser's Fury, Octo expansion, and the two Xenoblade extra stories. They've really been knocking out of the park when they put extra content in these games.
Yeah, and I mean, what a better way to try than, you know, sticking it beside something that is tried and true, where people know what to expect. And if it is a bit more, you know, risky, then that's fine. It's really not a huge loss for them. And then the other thing is let their creativity kind of take on a new form and see if it affects future games. So, yeah, I'm happy that we have the extra content from some of these titles, and I hope that trend continues.
Same. I think it was a great way to kind of justify the $60 price tag with 3D World. I would have paid $60 for 3D World anyway, just because it was one of my favorite games. But I know with Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, for example, there was a big kerfuffle about it being $60 at launch when the Wii U game was 50, and they didn't really add much. I think they added Funky Kong as a character, as a playable character, and that was basically it.
But he was the easy mode.
Yeah, he was the Babby mode basically. So they didn't really add much to it, and then they charged $10 more. So maybe they learned from that and was like, hey, if we're gonna remake these games or port them over from Wii U, we got to do something a little extra just to sweeten the deal. And of course, going back to 3D World, they also changed a lot of the gameplay mechanics. They made the game move a lot faster, which was huge because it was kind of slow and floaty before on the Wii U version. Like it felt like I was playing a completely different game. Just those subtle changes. And yeah, I'm with you, man. I hope they keep going with a lot of this extra and side content in games, and it's a great way for them to experiment. The big change from like Super Mario Odyssey to Bowser's Fury, for example, was how they implemented the power up system, a way to just use the different power ups and keep them with you and swap them out on the fly. I thought that was really cool because, of course, Odyssey, there's no real power ups. It's just the different things that you can possess with Cappy. So it was
Right.
a cool way to kind of bring that traditional Mario mechanic into a 3D form. Because if you think about it, there really aren't a whole lot of power ups in any of the 3D games. Just things like the winged cap.
No, that's actually that's a really good point that you bring up, because there's less of that. They almost kind of focus on one gimmick and they run
Right.
run with
Flood
that.
in Mario Sunshine, for example, and then the gravity stuff in Mario Galaxy. So Galaxy
Right.
did have a lot more power ups, but it wasn't the traditional way that Mario games usually handled power ups. It was always like a temporary thing, and it was always in various parts of the levels that were designed for it. So you really didn't get to play with the power ups and use them in levels that you couldn't get them in, for example. That's something that was always cool about like Super Mario World, is taking a blue Yoshi into a level that you couldn't get blue Yoshis in and just fly through the level, or take a fire flower into a level that only has the super cape. Things like that you couldn't really do in a lot of the 3D Mario games, because every power up was just a temporary thing. So, like I said, I love what they did with that in Bowser's Fury, the whole item management system, and I'm really hoping the next 3D Mario game builds on that.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, having a new game gives you an opportunity to make new things, and I don't know a whole lot about Xenoblade 3's new, like, maybe gimmicks and things like that. Like, I love the character designs. That's from what I've seen so far. Like, I think they look really good.
Oh yeah,
In fact, they impressed me more than the second one. I don't know if that hurts your feelings or anybody else out there, but I don't know. They just look really sophisticated, kind of not too edgy, but it just seems like they're great, and the personalities are vibrant as well. It's almost like they've they've kind of put it all together in one package,
yeah,
you know.
they've really been building off of it, and even since Xenoblade One's days, like the character designs, or at least how they appear in game, have always been kind of a drawback for them. And Monolith Soft is so good at making amazing worlds to explore and environments to look at, but the characters never really looked that great on the screen. And that went even into like Xenoblade Chronicles X. Everybody they had the potato face. And so 2 was the first time they really made good looking characters designs for the most part. And 3 just keeps iterating on that. They're getting really good at designing characters and displaying them in game. I love every character design so far, and it's going to be fun to see what they do with some of the old characters from Xenoblade 1 and 2 that will be returning in 3, and seeing if they change their style or do anything different with them. I can't wait to play the game. We're less than 60 days away. Speaking about all the gimmicks that were coming from previous games, one thing that Xenoblade 3 is going to do when it comes to like integrating mechanics from 1 and 2 is the battle system. I mentioned how it can be kind of hard to go back to Xenoblade 1 from two's battle mechanics. Well, the characters from each different nation, like each nation basically represents Xenoblade 1 or Xenoblade 2. So each game is represented by a nation, the two clashing sides. So if you're playing as a character from one side, your battle arts are going to behave similarly to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, where it was a cooldown based system. Whereas if you're playing as a character from the Xenoblade 2 based region, then your arts are charged by doing auto attacks like they were in Xenoblade 2. And I think that's super cool that they're doing that. So whichever one you prefer, you can basically choose it. And they're even doing a class system in this game. So you can choose a subclass to get the arts of a different class than what your main one is. So there's going to be some customization there, similar to like Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy V, where you can have your main job and your sub job and get abilities from both. But one thing I do want to talk about, maybe something not so good. We mentioned that it seems like they switched Xenoblade 3 and Splatoon 3's release dates. And one thing that may be a casualty of that, of moving the game up almost 2 months, is that there's a bit of concern here about the special edition versions of the game, at least in the UK. We don't know about the United States yet, or North America, or even Japan, but there's been a delay for the special edition contents of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in the UK. And this is from
Huh?
their site. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. They're not delaying the whole thing, just the stuff that you would get in the collector's edition. So you'll get the game on July 29th. This is from Nintendo's official UK online store, and the other items will follow at a later date. And this is exactly an excerpt from the site. If you reserve the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Collector's Edition, you will receive the packaged Xenoblade Chronicles 3 game software when it launches on July 29th. The additional contents of the Collector's Edition, which are the steelbook case, the soft cover, concept art book, and outer box packaging, will be delivered separately at a later date. Expected delivery timing autumn 2022. All items will be shipped with free delivery. But this is such a bizarre situation. I've never seen this. They're like, okay, we'll still give you the game on the July 29th, but everything else that's supposed to come with it will ship later. And since the delivery timing is autumn 2022, I feel like when they were getting all this set up and together, they were really planning on that September release date, and giving it the old switcheroo here kind of threw everything into a loop. That's crazy. Have you ever seen something like this where a special edition contents are delivered separately from the game?
The only thing I can imagine is maybe a lack of resources, or they, something's not finalized until a day after, or maybe I don't know. It has to be something like that. Otherwise, it doesn't really add up. I have no other. There's no other thought process, because yeah, that sounds. It's like, why not just, if you're already going to put the effort in paying for however much extra it is for the special, shouldn't you be getting everything at once? And if not, can I have an explanation as to why, as the consumer? Because I would want that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like this is because it's not launching in September like they were originally planning. It's just a very bizarre. I've never seen them do something like this. I feel like this is something where the suits and the big wigs were like, listen, we need to release Xenoblade 3 in July. We have to move it up. The game itself is ready. We have to get this out there.
They care more about the game being ready than the
Right.
that come with it.
Exactly. And I feel like that really put things in a bad spot for them, because you still have to manufacture all the different things, and maybe that part wasn't ready, so that this is basically their solution to that. Another thing that's a little weird about the special edition here is that in North America, the only place that you can get the special edition is through Nintendo's online store. So you can't go to Best Buy, Walmart, GameStop. You can't put a pre-order there. It's all done through Nintendo's online store, and pre-orders still have not gone up on the website. As of today, June 1st, 2022, less than 2 months away from release, we still can't reserve this on Nintendo's online site, which is the only place we're going to be able to. So we only have confirmation that the Europe version is going to be delayed and like staggered release between the game and the contents. So we're still kind of trying to figure out what is going to happen with this. And just to add another wrinkle to this whole situation, the Europe version of the special edition is only getting a softcover concept art book, whereas North America is going to get a hardcover version of the art book. It's a minor difference, but it is something worth pointing out, because obviously collectors would prefer the hardcover because they keep a little better. And I have to think they wanted them to keep the release in September so everything could come out at once. But somebody at the higher level of Nintendo was like, no, we have to get the game out since we already delayed Splatoon 3, and we need a big July game. We need a big summer game.
Got to push those sales.
Yeah, they're a company, they're a business. They got to get that bottom dollar.
They didn't make it to 107 million, within 4. Was it 4? It's only been out for 4 years, right? So
No, 5. Came out in
it's
2017. They
that's
just
right.
passed their 5-year anniversary.
Oh yeah, that was in March, right?
Yep, March 3rd.
That's insane, and it'll just keep going up from here. Like the Switch is here to stay in its current form for quite a long time. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. I guess yeah, I would want the American version too. I like my hardcovers.
Right. I mean, if you have a choice, of course you're going to go for the hardcover, and it's a little funny too, because usually Europe gets the better special editions than North America. So it's kind of weird that the shoe's on the other foot now, and we're actually getting the better version of it. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and I feel like this is just kind of a byproduct of changing the release dates for the game. But as long as I get to play it on July 29th, I don't care. I'll wait for the other stuff. The important part to me is the game, so I'd still prefer it all to come together. But if it has to be delayed, that's fine. I'll take the game first.
Is this a hint at the main character? Does the main character have an English accent? Like American English?
No, I believe they're all British English. So if you want to go into tinfoil hat territory with the voices, good. No, this is a thing. Like in Xenoblade 2, this was very deliberate. All of the drivers had British or like European accents because Nia had the Welsh accent, but all of the blades had American English accent. And in Xenoblade 3, all of the characters that we've heard so far have a British English accent, and only one character, Senna, has an American English accent where there's no, discernible accent when she speaks. And she's the one that kind of looks like Brigid from Xenoblade 2, where she has that little tuft of hair that kind of looks like blue fire.
Yeah.
So just going back to the tinfoil hat theory, so there might be something to that in terms of who has the accents and who don't, because it seemed like a very deliberate choice in Xenoblade 2, and we don't know what happens with blades in this new universe. So that'll be fun to unravel when the game comes out.
Definitely up to speculation. And yeah, stuff like that can be fun. I would just hate to be the casting director for the voices, I guess, because I imagine that's kind of a narrow. I mean, unless you're obviously looking for that talent, and I'm sure the talent's there, but if they were all kind of different or changed by game, but yeah.
I love how all of this started because Nintendo of America didn't want to bring Xenoblade Chronicles to North America back in the 2010s. So when they finally did, they just used the European version of the game with the British English accents, and now it's basically like a staple of the franchise.
It's like a canon thing,
Yeah.
which is a whole other thing because in Japan, it's not like the accents are available there when they're doing the voices, right?
There are different accents and dialects in Japanese as well, and some characters may or may not have that. I don't know how that breaks down in terms of like Xenoblade 2, for example, where it's very obvious in English who's a driver and who's a blade based on who has American English versus British English. But there's ways that they could do that if they wanted to separate it. I can't say for sure whether or not that's how they do it in Japanese, though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but I'm sure there's some differentiator by voice if they're doing it in other places.
Could be. I definitely wouldn't doubt it if that was the case. I'm actually playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 2 right now. Now that I've finished 1, I'm on a New Game Plus playthrough, and I'm playing with the Japanese voices just to kind of hear the difference. So I probably won't pick up on any of those subtle intricacies like that, but if I do, I'll let you know.
Please do, please do. Switching gears a little bit, I know what we talked about the PlayStation tiers, and since we last spoke on that, we have had a few titles released for PlayStation 1 emulation, at least if you have that top tier in the plan for PlayStation Plus. And yeah, I believe it's just a handful of games, and actually kind of in a position where it's seen mixed reviews. You got games that are running okay. Well, one, the selection isn't amazing, but I'm a little concerned with the performance, and I was hoping that we wouldn't have to worry about this. I mean, we had the PlayStation Classic that was kind of a catastrophe with its 50 hertz kind of versions that we received, and here we are again,
Yep.
with a few titles like that too, and I don't know why we would keep PAL versions like that in the mix for everybody. But maybe there's like a reason outside of being lazy and forgetting. Who knows?
Right. I would hope there's a good reason for it because it's 2022. Everybody has at least a 60 hertz panel, if not higher, because next generation consoles are boasting 120 frames per second gameplay in some games. So it is very strange that they're still having 50 hertz versions of these games, especially when Nintendo, who's been heavily criticized for how they handle their classic games preservation, or with the Nintendo Switch Online service, they even took the time and effort to make 50 hertz games run at 60 hertz. Twin Bee on the Super Nintendo was one that was uh, never released in North America, but once they did add it to the service for everyone to play, they did make sure that it was running at 60 hertz, and it's even on their own website proudly displayed that they did that. And it is kind of disappointing what Sony's doing so far. Like the roster of games isn't great, but I mean, I'm not gonna get it. I have a PS4, but I'm probably not gonna do anything with the PlayStation Plus. But we do got to give it a little bit of time. Even the Super Nintendo Online and N64 Online, the catalog wasn't great at the start, and they did add more games later on. So I'm sure this service will get better as time goes on, because even the expansion pass for Nintendo did get better. Once they started dropping all their big DLCs for first party games on there, the value started adding up to be the asking price. But as of right now, I can't justify for me personally what they're offering, but who knows? Maybe it'll get better. Maybe we'll get some more Final Fantasy games added to the mix to sweeten the deal.
Yeah, that would be preferred. I know that PS2 games can be a big lure for gamers who want to relive some of those titles, maybe even replay maybe play games for the first time that they haven't before. So um I don't know if that's a strategy, kind of having like a weak start to kind of like figure out, what people are interested, or maybe trying to iron out kinks, or maybe just not kind of going big from the get-go and doing a slow rollout of all of the good content. I I imagine there was going to be some shovelware, but I thought that there would be just higher notes in order to kind of intrigue uh, people into upgrading, because we've had PlayStation Plus for how over is it over a decade.
Yeah, this is the PS3 era.
Yeah, and I know it started out free. You know, it kind of became like it was just like cloud saves, and then it became like free games. But yeah, here we are. I I have hope that it will get better, but not without enough complaining.
Right. Well, they definitely need to hear the feedback. I mean, just look at the Sonic movie, and feedback does work. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing. But I can see both sides for the most part, because you don't want to put all your heavy hitters out immediately, because it is a subscription based service. So you want to keep adding stuff to get people coming back to it and keep paying that monthly fee, or to entice new buyers that maybe didn't want it before. Maybe they'll see a game that they really like and say, okay, it's worth it for me now because it has XYZ. It has this game that I like. I'll go ahead and jump on now. But at the same time, even the N64 Online, when the expansion pass came out, it still had iconic games. Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time were titles that were available at launch, if I'm not mistaken. I know Ocarina of Time was, because there was the the whole water glitch with that game. But
Right.
and they've added better games too. Like pretty much every game they've added to the N64 service has been a banger. We got the Mario Golf, we got Kirby and the Crystal Shards. Um, I believe Banjo Kazooie was added after launch, and there was another big one that came out. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, like every time they've dropped an N64 game, it's been a good one. Paper Mario, that was the other one. So they started with a couple really good games to get people enticed, and they're slowly adding more good games to keep you wanting to come back for more, which would be the ideal strategy. But in PlayStation's case, it just seems like their initial offering is just a little too weak to get people to bite right away.
Yeah, I'll just get a physical copy of Ape Escape and play it on my backwards compatible PS3, or I guess even just any of my PS3 models I have, since they all play PlayStation 1 native. I still think it's silly that we can't just do kind of what Xbox has with, their backwards compatibility, and that data is on their servers. They could just somehow, allow for playback. I'm sure in some way, I don't know if that would work, because I know PS1 games are slightly different.
I mean, there's enough headroom with just brute force power to be able to run a decent
Yeah.
emulator for PlayStation 1. So I can't even give them a pass on that. I mean, PlayStation 3 games being only streaming, I could kind of give them a pass on that because it is a newer hardware, newer, you know, it's a newer console than say the PlayStation 1. And maybe they just wanted to import PlayStation Now and make it a part of the service before eventually figuring out a way to get them to run natively. But with PlayStation 1 games, I mean, even a cheap $80 Android phone can run a decent PlayStation 1 emulator by enthusiasts who are basically doing it for free out of their mom's basement. It's so hard to give them a pass for not being able to emulate 20-year-old consoles that everyone else has been able to do for years now on lesser hardware. The PlayStation 5 is a beast of a console. There really shouldn't be an excuse not to run PS1 games well.
Yeah, I understand why it's difficult for the PS3 stuff to be played natively, just because of the architecture they chose, and all those high def graphics. Yeah, I don't know. I love that about Xbox, and where you could just pop in a game and you're like, oh,
Everything works.
it gives me, because like Game Pass has like original Xbox games. It's got 360 games, and you can download them. But if you have any of those games that they offer that you have physical copies for, you can just play and not worry about downloading them, or it's off of Game Pass now and you have to buy it and have a physical. I feel like that's incredible. Like nobody's been able to really match that.
Right. Yeah, and it helps that they were kind of a late entrant into the console game with the Xbox, the original Xbox. So they don't have nearly as much history to try to like make it work. And they've kept it pretty similar in terms of the architecture for each of their consoles from the original Xbox all the way up to the Series console. So I know that definitely helps them. Basically every console has been a DVD sized disc that you put into a console. Whereas Nintendo, for example, has changed their form factor with basically every console generation since the original Nintendo and Famicom. So backwards compatibility is, of course, a little harder to do there just because different form factors. You're not going to be able to put your GameCube disc in the Nintendo Switch, which takes cartridges, and so that does help them with their backwards compatibility, and I think it's a great feature. I really wish Sony would get on board with it. Even with the physical
Yeah.
discs, they could find a way to emulate a PS1 in a PS5 and make it work off of that disc. Even if it's just something as simple as, okay, we detect this disc, so we're going to install this game and make it run through the emulator instead of trying to make it run off the disc.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's solutions. I just feel like it's not a priority. That's all.
Yeah, their priority is just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and see if they can get more subscriptions. It just seems like a half-hearted attempt to, I don't even want to say compete with Game Pass, but at least answer Game Pass, if that makes sense. It's like them acknowledging that Game Pass exists.
Hey, we know they've got their own Blockbuster likes, service. I remember when Blockbuster was about to lose service, really cool deal where you paid like a monthly fee. It was like a 15, 25. It was like their way to try to compete with Netflix. Can I speak? It was their way of competing with Netflix, and what was impressive was that you pay like a flat fee every month, and it was affordable. It might have even been, you know what? It might have been kind of high. It'll sound high. It was like 20, 25, $30. But here's the deal: you have two movies, and you switch them in for another movie as many times as you want in a day within that month, as many times as you want. So I mean, you could end up, if you're off of work, or if you have all this time, which it was summer vacation. So I don't know. For me, yeah, hopefully it just becomes interesting. I, yeah, there's just too many games. But if they're gonna take this route of the quality being this way, I would at least want them to never have the games like leave that they have. Like how in Game Pass you kind of have to play them, and I do like that for its own reasons. But at the same time, sometimes I don't have time to play a game that's on Game Pass that's limited, and now I lost my opportunity. So hey, if Sony's going to take this route and they want to kind of set themselves apart, maybe keep all the games that are
Right. That would be a good compromise. So just like with Nintendo, anything that goes on their NES SNES, N64, Genesis app, I don't have to worry about trying to beat it in a certain time because it'll leave the service because it'll always be there. So to Nintendo's credit,
Right.
at least they've got that going for them, where it's just those games will always be there. And I've been hit by that with the Game Pass. There was a game I was playing that was on Game Pass. I believe it was Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the Castlevania-like game, and it left Game Pass, and I didn't even notice. So I couldn't even take advantage of the 20% discount you get for games that are on Game Pass, and it left the service, and I just couldn't play it anymore. I was so disappointed.
Like you couldn't even get it for the discounted price either.
Exactly, because once it leaves Game Pass, that discount doesn't apply. Although I'm sure it's a pretty old game now. I could probably find it on sale at other points, but it was just the fact that I was already playing it, I was already into it, and then just one day went to boot it up and it couldn't be played. It was basically gave you the message to where, you don't have a license for this, you have to purchase the game or insert disc or whatever. So I was like, dang, I didn't know it worked like that. I learned the hard way that Game Pass games aren't permanent.
Yeah, that's a terrible way to learn that, but at the same time, I think there is an indicator now that I've taken a closer look at, when a game doesn't boot and you've had it on your system for a while. If you turn your console back on and a game that you don't own doesn't have Game Pass, the icon on the title square for that game, that means it's no longer on Game Pass, and that's your indicator before even trying to launch the game if if you'll be on it. So that's one small detail that I noticed recently.
Oh, I never noticed that. That's neat, and they're very transparent to Microsoft's
Yeah.
credit. Like they'll constantly announce games that are leaving Game Pass and games that are coming to Game Pass every half a month. So if I was paying attention, I definitely would have noticed. So I mean, I'm not like blaming them for blindsiding me. If I'd have been paying attention, I would have known it was leaving. So they're at least transparent about what is coming in and out. And I guess that also helps them keep a good rotation of really solid games, especially like third-party games, because they don't have to constantly pay a license to keep it there since they're rotating them in and out based on relevancy, and that allows them to keep good games coming to Game Pass without, having to charge more for the service. So I guess that's kind of the compromise when you want big AAA games in Game Pass.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree.
You know, a game that I don't think will be coming to Game Pass? Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah, I mean that's supposed to be coming on everything, like even GameCube, right?
Not quite, but when it was first revealed and they announced that it was going to have a Switch version, a lot of people kind of laughed at that and said, "Oh, it's going to run terribly on Switch. Who's going to get on Switch? It's going to blow up their Switch," and they run it. But looking at especially the most recent trailer, I don't know if this was announced beforehand. Maybe I just didn't see it. But they are making a last gen version of the game as well. So it's going to be on PS4, the base Xbox One. That's another console that'll probably struggle to run it with any type of consistency. But it'll come to those as well as Switch, PS5, Xbox Series consoles. So basically, as long as you have a console made within the last 10 years, you'll be able to play Sonic Frontiers. And we did get a trailer too. Very short clip, but it did reveal a little bit of the gameplay for it. It showed a little bit of the combat. I'm still not 100% sure what's going on in that trailer, to be honest, but it does look really cool, and it's the most excited I've been for a new Sonic game in a long time. So hopefully around this E3 time, we get some more information on it, what the gameplay loop is, really. But basically, it just looks like open world Sonic.
It's impressive. The scale is a bit alarming because I know that we've only had Sonic in very linear levels, and
Yeah.
all the design for it has been kind of just tailored for an experience. So for you to have, I don't know, I want to avoid replicating what happened with Halo Infinite. I guess not that Halo Infinite is a bad campaign game. The campaign for it isn't bad, but it could be. I don't know. It was just their first try, 343's first try at it. So hopefully, Sonic Team's been able to just do their research and test, and not only I hope not only does Sonic feel good to play, but also explore this massive world that we've never been able to in his shoes, quite literally.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, and you mentioned the scale on it. I think that's something that actually plays into Sonic's strength. So, if you're trying to go from one point of the map to the other, what better way to do it than at lightning speed as Sonic the Hedgehog? So that could be something that they incorporate into the open world, just being able to travel through it very quickly, just running through it. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a there's a Sonic the Hedgehog simulator in Roblox, I think it is, where you collect more of these bits, your speed goes up, and it's kind of like these, big open maps that you run through and go through loops and stuff, and it's pretty cool. So I mean, if Frontiers looks anything like that, I mean, we're in for a really cool experience, being able to just blaze through these huge maps, and but still also take our time to slow down and explore every nook and cranny.
And give us content. Like
Right.
I think that's the biggest part. And yeah, you bring up a great point with the speed. I mean, if anything, that can be a huge strength. But at the same time, I just wouldn't want it to be. I don't know. The trailer showed us not a lot, so I feel like that was like big selling point. Like, hey, look at how huge this world is, and
Right.
I just want things to do. And I know it's coming out at the this year, so if that's the case, hopefully they have everything ironed out.
I just, please, for the love of God, Sonic Team, let me play as a character that's not Sonic. Let me play as Tails and Knuckles in this game. I hate how their recent trend is to only acknowledge Sonic as a playable character. And it just bothers me. They have a great roster of characters that, even in a 3D environment, can play well with their quirks, with Tails with his flying and Knuckles with his gliding. I want to be able to play as characters that aren't Sonic, and I also want to be able to play as Super Sonic in regular gameplay without, getting to the post game and just using it for like a final boss or something. That might be a little greedy of me to ask for, but that's my hopes and dreams for it. Not just the gameplay be fun, but also let me play as someone else.
A la Sonic Heroes. That amazing ending. Um, yeah, I agree with you, but I feel like they might do that. I don't know if they'll surprise us with something like that. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool if they did. Like if they did like a Chronicles or something later.
Oh, we don't talk about Chronicles.
No, I meant like the actual word, right? An episodic kind of thing.
Oh, whew! You had me worried for a second.
I love where you went with that. No, I could see. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just don't give me a scenario where it just doesn't fit right, or I don't know. I want it to fit the world, but who knows? It was just a teaser more than anything. So, and they're being very cryptic about stuff, and I feel like that's I don't know, that's really good tactic
They're being very guarded with what they show us. You're right.
for being released this year. They're taking that Sonic hype train. They want to wipe away any memory have versus, you know, really just they're probably going to stick with Sonic, I imagine, just because it's reliable. They can make all the mechanics really tight and fit this entirely. And maybe they can build on it from there. But I could see that being like a safe bet.
And I'd be okay with that as long as the gameplay is tight. As long as Sonic Kit is varied and fun to use, and it doesn't make me feel like I need to play a different character just to have something different, then I guess I'd be okay with that. But I just really want to play as Tails in a 3D Sonic game and not in a robot, a robot like in Sonic Adventure. But a franchise that lets you play as a bunch of different characters, Pokemon. You can't play as all of them in every game, but hey, you do get couple hundred of them every game, and we do have a new one coming out later this year as well, and that would be Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet versions. And we actually have a trailer dropping tomorrow as of the time of this recording at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So when you listen to this podcast, it'll have already happened, but we don't know that yet. Past Zero and Past Soldier don't know what's in the trailer, so that'll be fun to have a little prediction. What do you predict that we're going to see in this trailer that already happened?
Uh, I don't know. That's a great question. My hopes are that we get maybe a reveal to the Scarlet and Violet legendaries, or maybe it's going to be kind of like Red and it's like the final evolution of maybe some of the characters. I don't think they'll go that route, but it would just be nice to know what the face of those is.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet, though. We're going to get either evolutions of the starters or the box legendaries. That feels like a very predictable thing for them to hype up a trailer for and to show. I never really cared about the box legendaries just because I don't use legendaries in my normal playthroughs, but I agree. It would be nice to see what the box art's going to look like at least. Can't be any worse than Sword and Shield, so here's to hoping.
And if you look at the Japanese versions of the names, it does appear that there is something missing from English versions of the names. And it's like a little kind of gem or like a diamond or something. And it's like what people are kind of speculating is like the next gimmick. So it would be cool if they introduced like, hey, third type, hey, dual abilities, hey, two items are being held, like whatever it is, maybe it's mega evolution akin to that. But if it was another hope of mine, I would hope that we got to learn about what this game has to offer that is different than other games outside of being the first open Pokemon game. That kind of trends, because we have Legends Arceus, we know what could be, a potential for that, not fully realized, but what more can you bring to the table?
When you said not fully realized, all I was thinking about was the old "Get Yourself a Dragonite" video. Not fully realized dragons. Oh man, I've got brain rot from the internet.
Yeah, no, I mean, you shared that with me, so it's hard not to see that entire video play out as you said that. So
Right. Well, in terms of what I expect to see, I think they're going to show a little bit more of the region. Maybe introduce like the evil team or whatever it is we're supposed to do. We'll probably get gems back and our 8 badges and whatnot. I don't think they're going to teeter away from that path too much, but maybe they'll throw us a loop and have a situation where, like, similar to the anime, where you can choose which gym to go to first and the Pokemon they use, the amount of Pokemon and the levels and everything will scale based on how many badges you already have. That would be amazing, and I think that would be a really cool way to let Scarlet and Violet stand out from previous games, where it's, yeah, we still have that traditional get your 8 badges and go battle Elite Four system, but this would be a way for them to kind of mix it up and change the formula and make it interesting to where you can kind of choose where you want to go, and every playthrough would be different in that way. If I had a hope, though, of what I want to see, I'm really hoping they reveal that you'll still be able to catch Pokemon without initiating a battle like they did in Legends Arceus, where you can kind of skulk around and sneak around and just throw the Pokeballs directly at them and not start a battle. And maybe if the catch fails, then you have to start a battle, because I don't think they're going to have the Pokemon directly attacking trainers like in Legends, but at least some way to try and catch them without having to do the whole battle system, just to kind of keep it quick, keep the tempo up. That would be really cool.
they already had the sneak system introduced in Alpha and Omega, Ruby and Sapphire. So I feel like, yeah, push it, push it.
Just go that extra mile. Just, build on Legends Arceus.
I like that idea a lot.
I feel like they kind of have to build on Legends Arceus. It was such a breath of fresh air for the franchise that I don't know if I can go back to a very traditional system for Pokemon anymore. I don't think they're going to bring the agile and strong system back, which is fine. I thought it was cool for what it was. It mixed things up in Legends Arceus. So if they go back to the typical 4 move format, turn-based battles, higher speed Pokemon moves first instead of the kind of rotating system Legends use, that's cool. But I just really want to be able to, if I see a Pokemon that I want to catch and it's a relatively weak one, I want to be able to just chuck an Ultra Ball at it, catch it, and keep it moving.
Zero. What if the gimmick is a fifth?
Hmm. That would be interesting. That ironically, that small change would probably shake up the meta more than anything else that they could do, like megas or Z moves or anything. Just having that extra slot would add so much flexibility.
You're not wrong. I've thought about it so many times. Because go a long way, and I don't know. It might. They've already been kind of grooming all of the fans throughout all the generations to become a bit more into the meta, like just easy to get into and learn, and EV train very easy just for as you can. So I don't know. It would be nice to have just something to spice things up, and I hope we at least get one new evolution, but yeah, I'll just keep dreaming.
I want my Drakeon. Give me my dragon type evolution. Just make it happen. That's all I want.
You want what?
Drakeon, the dragon evolution.
Oh. I see. There'll be nothing but Drake memes.
That's fine. I'm willing to pay that price.
That's a really high price to pay, friend.
That's okay. Just give him Drake's mustache, you know? Just go
He's
all in
just
on it.
Drakeon is just like the same color scheme as like Dragonite or something, and you're like, wow, it's just like a wait, it is just like Drake. Then he doesn't even write his own raps. So yeah, I don't know. I do hope that they have something like a dragon would be cool.
I'm an idiot. When you said Drake, you meant you meant the music artist. I'm thinking Drake, the freaking Elite Four guy from the Hoenn games.
That's all we have time today. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, that's probably good to end it here.
And that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for joining me to talk video games, Zero. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and then hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to drop a like, a dislike, or maybe even a comment and talk video games with us. Take care, everyone, and happy gaming.
See you, everybody.